to forget you. Oh, you. I need to treat you better than that and make you feel like I did in the past. Oh, I will treat you better than that. I don't need to forget you. I need to treat you better than that and make you feel like I did in the past. Oh, I will treat you better than that. I don't need to forget you.
There's something that won't let me forget the way that you move. You tattooed me with your lips. I wore you like perfume. We were like no other, two hearts on the edge, but we went from lovers to just being friends. Played me like a song stuck in your head, but you still get my blood rushing. Dance with me, baby, you take away the pain. Dance with me, baby, you can lead the way. Dance with me, baby, a cure for the heartbreak. Dance with me and let this old record play. Let it play, baby. Let it play, baby. Dance with me and let this old record play. I know you see me cross the room, let's skip to the end. I wanna be what keeps you sleepless past 3 a.m. I know that we're toxic, but I like the thrill. I'd be 6 feet under if looks could kill. Let's go back to live it all again and get too close as fast as we can. Dance with me, baby, you take away the pain. Dance with me, baby, you can lead the way. Dance with me, baby, a cure for the heartbreak. Dance with me and let this old record play. Let it play, baby. Let it play, baby. Dance with me and let this old record play. I know this gets so complicated. You lose your mind just to change it, and tomorrow you'll regret it. But until the morning, dance with me, baby, you take away the pain. Dance with me, baby, you can lead the way. Dance with me, baby, a cure for the heartbreak. Dance with me and let this old record play. Let it play, baby. Let it play, baby. Dance with me and let this old record play.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to TTML. We are here for more Division 1 action, round 2 of the championship, here in Season 4, as we take in the Japanese Grand Prix from the Suzuka circuit. My name is James Head, going to be taking you through the stream as always, and joining me in the commentary box, it is Mr. Luke Etheridge. Luke, how are you doing?
I am very well, thanks, James. Good evening to yourself. Good evening to everyone that is watching. Should be a good race, this. I think if this weekend's Emilia Romagna Grand Prix proved anything, it is definitely a place in Formula 1 for classic tracks that punish you for making mistakes, and Suzuka definitely goes into that category. It's fast, it's flowing, it's tricky for the drivers, especially if we get any weather. It could be a really interesting race.
Yeah, it could be a really interesting race indeed, and one thing that we can guarantee you ultimately, before the beginning of this, TTML is probably going to be more popular than the European Super League, but the less we say about that, the better. Zhao Zhao out on top in the drivers' standings on 33 points, with Sorensen in second. The two Danes leading the way for IFR. He's on 25 points in second. Carlsbury in third. A really good result, of course, from Zhao Zhao, Sorensen and Carlsbury last time out. Kumbla in fourth, with Lando in fifth, otherwise known as Relentless Nathan now. He's in fifth on 15 points. Scuba in sixth on 14. Perpetuum in seventh on 13. W in eighth on 12. Armady in 9th on 11, and Vapor Hyper in 10th on 10 points. And Zhao Zhao really dominated away that race in Britain last time out. It was changeable conditions. He had, a 10-second lead before that safety car came out, and it was just an insane drive from Zhao Zhao.
It was a fantastic performance, but it so nearly all went horribly wrong when that safety car came out, because as we saw at Silverstone, incredibly tricky in wet conditions to actually make any overtakes, and despite him having so much fresher tyres than Perpetuum, and I think in the end it was Mikras as well, the other driver who had it come into the pits, they really struggled to work their way through the field, did Zhao Zhao and Sorensen. Did get through in the end, got the perfect 33 points last time around. Good job in qualifying, but the race, kind of a unique set of circumstances. It's very rare on Formula 1 games, especially in league racing. It's one of the few times I've had it happen where you get a full wet race in full wet conditions, so blue-walled wet tyres all the way through. I doubt we'll be seeing that again, so how representative that is for the rest of the season, we'll have to wait and see. I think tonight might be a bigger say on how the championship could go.
Yeah, Japan's certainly going to be one of those tracks, I think, that is really going to test the drivers out on track, and some beautiful, beautiful corner names and some beautiful corners as well out on track around that 18-corner circuit. Mikras in 11th, running down the second half of the standings. He's in 11th on 9 points. Laser 12th on 8. Mashiro having a few internet problems at the minute in 13th on 7. Volbeek, Yulmelmat, Bullet Boy, Vienna, Nicholas Lemon and Noon yet to pick up any points. In the constructors' standings, quite close. Haas leading the way on 34 points. Alfa Romeo second on 33. McLaren third on 31. Williams fourth on 25. Ferrari fifth on 21. Red Bull sixth on 18. Mercedes seventh on 15. AlphaTauri in eighth on 10. Renault in ninth on 8. And Racing Point, the defending constructors' champions here in TTML, in 10th, nil point.
No, but that's what happens when neither of your drivers can make the first race, and I don't think at the moment we've actually got anyone going for the Pink Panthers either. They've all gone off to Aston Martin quite early on before we've even got them in the game, of course. So, yeah, still, like we said, early days. I think Haas do look really good. They are only 1 point ahead at the moment, but Sorensen and Mikras did look quick last night. Mikras, you could argue, had a few problems, obviously, with that safety car, but we'll see how things go. We've had a few changes in the teams. TTG Laser wasn't in AlphaTauri last time around. He's swapped over to the Renault, so whether that's a prediction of what some people think Pierre Gasly might be doing in the future, we'll have to wait and see. And we were due to have a few new drivers tonight. Venom was meant to be joining us. VX Vexum, he was going to be joining us in the AlphaTauri, and he's not able to, which is a shame because I was really looking forward to see what he can do. So we've got Combi joining him, and we might be seeing Lars Kramer in the Ferrari in place of Mashiro. And in fact, Lars is in the lobby now.
Yeah, Lars is in the lobby now. It'll be very interesting to see how he gets on. Of course, I think I commentated him on the 24 Hours of F1 event back in December. So very much looking forward, I should say, to seeing how that is all going to unfold out on track. Let's have a quick look then at this track map in question. Here at Suzuka, 5.8 kilometres in length, 3.6 miles. There are 18 turns awaiting the drivers out on track. Only the one DRS zone, and if it's anything like the race that I saw just 2 weeks ago in League of Europe around here in Japan, we could be in possibly race of the season.
We could be indeed. It's one of those circuits, quite rare on the F1 calendar, where the DRS zone isn't really your main overtaking opportunity. If I'm being honest, I'd prefer to be having to go into that final chicane, into the Casio Triangle, because you've got a long, straight, flat-out run now, all the way coming out the end of Spoon. 130R is a straightforward, flat-out corner for modern Formula 1 cars, even with a bit of fuel, even with a bit of dirty air. Really, you can make it through there. So that's probably your best overtaking point, and maybe really your only real overtaking opportunity. It is possible into turn one, but I think you do need a bit of a tyre differential and the driver in front of you having a bit of bad exit. The rest of the track almost follow the leader. You can go for the old Kamui Kobayashi though into the hairpin at turn 11. And an interesting fact about the Suzuka circuit, Japanese drivers have had 3 podiums in the history of Formula 1. 2 of them have been at Suzuka.
Very interesting indeed, and if you like Schiaparelli as well, maybe one of the best routes I've ever seen around here in Japan in sim racing. 3 wide around the outside of the Dunlop curve. Just imagine that. That's what he did in League of Europe in season 4, I think it was, so a couple of seasons back now. But there we are. We are about to get going then in towards qualifying. We'll take Luke's thoughts as we go into qualifying, of course. But, of course, good luck to all of the drivers that are going to be competing out on track. And it is about that time, once again, on a Tuesday night to say, let's get started, let's go into qualifying. Welcome along, everyone, to TTML. We are here for Season 4, Round 2 of the Championship as we take in the Japanese Grand Prix from the Suzuka International Circuit. There are 3 compounder tyres for the guys out on track. Those are the C3, C2 and C1 compounder tyre. The softs, mediums and the hards to you and me. And of course, if it's going to be wet, we've also got the inters and the wet condition tyres as well. My name is James Head. Luke Etheridge, of course, joining me alongside in the commentary box. And once again, let's have a look then at this track map in question here in Japan. The only figure-8 circuit on the F1 calendar. It's 5.8 kilometres in length with 18 turns with the single DRS zone. And that is down the start-finish straight. A very undulating track, a lot of elevation change around here as well. Plenty of overtaking opportunities. And hopefully it is all going to make up for a really good race out on track and a really good qualifying session as well. As we transfer straight into qualifying, my biggest fear has came true. It's wet.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This could lead to a bit of a mixed-up grid. Most of the drivers in the pits at the moment suggesting that they're going to be going for the wet tyres, and I can kind of see why. We've had a question, what's your favourite corner in Suzuka? I think the entire first sector, to be honest. Just like the S's going into the Dunlop curve, probably even a bit past that through the first 2 Degdas as well. I just love that part of the circuit. I've said it before, I seem to love Suzuka on Gran Turismo and seem to hate it on the F1 game for whatever weird reason. It's much better since they got rid of the infamous bump out of the final corner that anyone who played F1 2019 in the games before will remember, because that bump pretty much made it a single line through the final corner, and you're probably just going to see a single line through qualifying as well as a dry line starts to appear out on track. Few cars are coming out, unsurprisingly, on the wet tyres. I wonder if towards the end of the session, if the game suggests that it might be getting a bit drier, whether anyone will go for the intermediates, but you're going to want to take it very careful. We said this is a track that bites. You do not want to crash out on your first lap and not get a time on the board.
Yeah, definitely not. And of course, in these conditions, it is going to be that more tricky for all of the guys out on track. Jaja was the first man out on track, of course, race winner last time out when it came in Britain in wet weather conditions. Are we going to see an absolute sublime lap from Jojo? I wonder. Of course, many drivers out on that lap. Just to speak about some of the tyre choices as well. Some have went on inters. Imadi, Kumbly and Hyper are all out on a set of inters. Everyone else, by my graphic certainly, it shows them on a set of wet compounder tyre. And that might mean, actually, we're right at the crossover period between the wets and the inters.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd be tempted to maybe just do a lap on the wets in qualifying. You've got 18 minutes just to see what the wet tyres are like and then see what sort of time everyone else is setting. And then you feel like, ooh, maybe I can ditch it into the pits and go on a set of intermediates. That holds up, of course, as long as the rain doesn't get heavier throughout the session. This might be the best conditions that we get, and it might be get a lap on the intermediates now before it gets too wet. And if that's the case, this might be a very short qualifying session indeed. It's good to have a bit of a fuller grid than last time around. 19 drivers.
Oh, I've been absolutely mugged. Jojo's into the pits.
intermediate tyre time.
I can't believe it! Perpetuum, the first man out on track. I've never been mugged off like that before. Down in towards turn 1, Perpetuum we go with the defending champion, of course, here in TTML. He now comes through turn number 1, through turn 2, and then towards the slithering snake S-section. That's all I like to call it around here. Through 3, bit of a mouthful to say, through 4, and then through 5, and then through 6. So he now comes up towards the Dunlop curve out on track, and the Dunlop curve, catch the curve here, it will fling the car out wide and runs off camber of the corner, but very nicely done there from Perpetuum as he now reaches towards the end of the first sector, and Perpetuum's first sector, 36.8 through the first sector as he runs wide, coming through Dector 1, now through Dector 2. Not sure if that was an invalidation. It looks like he's on a sort of wet compound tyres as well as he now runs up the hill. Where Kvyat went off, of course, in 2014, runs wide, really wide, down in towards the hairpin there, as he now runs out of the hairpin, and then through where the MotoGP circuit goes around here, where it used to came, of course, here with Suzuka, now down through in towards Spoon Curve, through turn 12 and then through turn 13 out on track, and this is where you've got to try and really get on the power, coming out of this corner here, through turn 13, and now all the way up the hill in towards 130R, and this is a very tricky section, of course, out on track to compete, now coming up towards turn 15 and through the middle sector split, 44.8 through the middle sector from Perpetuum. He's ran massively wide, I'm not surprised. He is struggling out on track. In terms of the middle sector, though, Lars looks like he is a second down on that middle sector as well compared to Perpetuum. Perpetuum now out of the final corner, coming toward the line, and his lap time is a 140.1, and a very good lap there from Perpetuum to start us off.
Yeah, it is. I was just trying to check the TAS system to see what different laps other drivers were setting. 141 from Lars. Kuhn goes fastest, 6/10 ahead of Perpetuum. On a set of the intermediate tyres, we go 139.5, and I imagine as the laps go on, you'll just get more and more confident with that set of intermediates. Nathan coming around the final couple of corners down. Noon, the other Mercedes, goes up into a 139. Hyper on a 139.4. Nathan, 139.2. It's definitely intermediate conditions. Perhaps when they went out on circuit, it was wet conditions, but the game does tell you which way it's changing if you flick between the two tyres. And normally, if you've gone for the intermediates on an out lap, if they're a second slower, they'll be fine by the time you get to a flying lap, as we've had our first victim of 130R, and it's Mikras.
And Nicholas has just spun coming through in towards Sector 1 as well. Mikras out of the session through Sector 3, looking that. Was that coming through 130R, possibly?
Yeah, just caught it slightly on board with Zhao Zhao. It was right at the exit of 130R, so I'm guessing he's had an oversteer moment through the corner, gone to save it, and then obviously sort of like you get the high side in MotoGP where you go to save it and the car suddenly grips, you go the other way. He'd have just been a passenger towards the wall. I said it was a nice, straightforward condition in dry conditions if you've got fuel and maybe a bit of dirty air on. It's not so straightforward in the wet. This track does bite, and Mikras almost certainly will be starting from the back of the grid. As you can see now, the top 5 fastest times, all on intermediates.
Yeah, very good lap time there as well from, I think we were on board with Volbeek there, into 5th position. He went 140.1 out on track. Mikras, by the way, was purple in the middle sector before he actually crashed, so it would have been a very good lap from Mikras. Of course, he is in the IR4 team, along with Sorensen and along with Zhao Zhao. Of course, Zhao Zhao, the representative here. I also see Santeri's right down at the bottom of the field. Of course, a former Division 2 driver, I think, last season under a different name. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but Santeri is going to be one of those drivers. Whereas Hyper has gone quickest, 138.8 out on track. One ball with Yul Melmat, though, coming through the middle sector, 44 flat through the middle sector for the German. So now comes through in towards 16 and 17. Coming through the Casio triangle, fights the car on the exit of the corner, and now all the way runs down to the line. I wonder what this lap time is going to be. Comes across the line, goes second, the 139.1 and 3/10 off the back of Hyper.
Yeah, not bad whatsoever for Yul Melmat. I think he just did a second lap just to get used to the conditions. Volbeek went purple in the first sector. He's had a few moments, though, coming out of the hairpin and coming through Spoon Curve here. So I think that's the... If you can get a clean lap in, the intermediates are definitely faster, but the wets might just give you that tiny bit more confidence at the moment, because it is still raining quite hard, and you've got offline, there's still a fair amount of standing water, but you can see there is a slightly drier line for the racing line for the drivers to go on, and with the physics on this game, it is better just to stick to that normal dry racing line. Combi now goes up into the 1 minute 38. Volbeek's coming around the final corner now. He's had a big slide there. He can only go into 4th.
Just missed him coming across the line. 139.2 on that lap time, so good laps are there from Volbeek. Nathan there in fifth as well. Nathan currently on a lap under the Relentless tag, of course, and Relentless representing a team within, which has been formed up within League of Europe, and a very good team at that as well. Nathan now coming out through the middle sector, out through Spoon, and on his lap time, he was nearly purple in the first sector. Only a 10th down on Volbeek's fastest first sector, a 36.5 through the middle sector, 44 flat. So Nathan is there or thereabouts. There's a yellow flag in sector 1 out on track. We'll focus on Nathan down in towards the final couple of corners and mix up in the strategies. I think we saw Volbeek as well jump up into 4th just ahead of Nathan there. Santeri up to 8th as well on his lap. Now coming across the line goes Nathan, and he goes 3rd at 138.9, and that was his 3rd lap on a set of inters. It clearly shows that the more that you get used to the track, the more that you are going to try and improve on a lap time.
Yeah, it's pretty common to see that. We've got a yellow flag here, and I think Volbeek's going to have to be pretty careful because you can get disqualified if you spend too long just parked out on track. He was just trying to find a gap to get out of the way. He's had a big moment coming out of the second Degner, completely wiped off his front wing, so he'll be heading into the pits. This might be an interesting point, though, to see what the weather's going to be like in the race. Our driver's going to head out now on a second set of intermediates, or are they just going to want to play it safe and not do as many laps in this session? Because, of course, we don't know what the rain is like, and that's Combi, who I don't know if he was trying to go into the pits there or carry out on track. In the end, he ended up doing neither and going into the pit wall.
Yeah, just catching on board with the end of that as well. Coney out on top as Combi. Luckily, he's made it into the pit lane halfway through qualifying. Combi out on top, 138.8. Hyper in second. The two AlphaTauri showing the way out on track. Nathan in third, Matt in fourth, Volbeek in fifth. Volbeek was purple first sector before he came through. Somebody that is on a lap time, though, is Laser, coming out through Spoon. And this is a good lap time, actually, from Laser. No, it's not, because he's actually invalid on this lap. So right on board with Scuba, who's on a set of intermediate conditions. 36.4, quickest of everyone in the first sector from the Irishman. He now runs up the hill in towards the hairpin, where Kvyat, of course, went off in 2014. Now into the hairpin, the car comes in the Ferrari, the Irishman, Division 2 champion, of course, last season, now running past. We see Dobby go up into 9th, I think, with a 139.7. There is not really much time difference in between the inters and the wets on tyres. I would say less than a second, maybe, between, as Zhao Zhao goes to the top. Is that real? A 37.8?
That is, everyone else is just hoping that this race is dry now, because that is a ridiculous lap time. A second faster than everyone. Pretty much, he found 3 tenths in the final sector, which is 18 seconds long. That is an incredible lap time from Zhao Zhao. We've got Scuba coming around the final few corners now. He doesn't look like he's doing too bad. He was purple in sector 1, but obviously that was before we saw Zhao Zhao set a purple lap time. So I wonder what Scuba's going to do as he heads towards the line. He goes into second position. He's still nearly 9 tenths of a second off Zhao Zhao, who is the fastest driver. So Zhao Zhao carrying on that form from last week and carrying off where he left at the end of last season, where he got a podium in every race he took part in. He was only here for the final 4 races, but got a podium in all 4 of them and 2 pole positions. So looking very good, the Danishman.
Yeah, looking very good for my prediction. Remember last week where I said he might win the championship? It's not looking too bad now, is it? Zhao Zhao out on top, Scuba in second, Combi in third. I think Lars went up to 7th there with a 139.2, so good lap from him. Nicholas is coming out the final corner in the racing point, comes across the line. I think Perpetuum went up into 8th there, Kumblai in 6th as well. Nicholas across the line, 139.2. Not really representative of his pace, that. He goes 11th, though, ahead of Santeri. And Santeri is coming through the final corner. There's a yellow flag in sector 1 out on track. Might be somebody out on an out lap. Santeri, though, back into the pit lane. Goodness me, he spins the car coming into the pit lane, and Santeri is back in very safely indeed. Lars is on a lap, Perpetuum on a lap as well. We saw Kumblai improve as well. Just trying to see if there's anybody actually out there. I think Lemon might be on a lap time, but he's just started, I think.
Yeah, I think Lemon has just started a lap time. We've all seen a few drivers improve. Kumblai's just invalidated his lap coming through sector 2, so maybe just getting it wrong out of the Degners. It is very easy to do that. Perpetuum's up ahead of him, and he's 2 tenths up on his personal best. Now, he was looking pretty good for a podium last time out. He was going for that non-stop strategy, and as soon as he started getting bundled down the field on the wet tyres, he really started to struggle. And in the end, he still managed to finish and get some points, but he'd have been hoping for a better start to his title campaign than 7th place. And we'll see what the German can do here. A couple of attempts up in sector 1. Doesn't really get much of a slipstream from Lars on the way down to 130R. I'm sure he'd have been hoping for a bit more help than that. But if this is a good middle sector, could put Perpetuum up onto the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and Perpetuum's middle sector 44 flat, so he's looking around Nathan's sort of area possibly with this lap time. And the German now coming out through the final corner. The rain curtains, the sheet of rain now lashing over the track. And Perpetuum now coming out through the final corner, comes across the line, and he goes second. 138.4. Perpetuum found a lot of time in that final sector, a sub-18 final sector, quicker than Zhao Zhao as well. So it seems like to me the third sector might be the time where you can gain all of the time out on track. I just thought I'd mention as well about Zhao Zhao's second sector. It was only a 43.6 compared to Perpetuum on a 44 flat.
Yeah, Zhao Zhao just seems to have had that middle sector absolutely nailed at the moment. He's invalidated this lap, so he's saving up all his... Well, he's actually going into the pits. He will have time, of course, to go out on another lap. Just trying to see who is now heading towards the end of a lap. At the moment, Noon's coming around the final sector, but he's slightly slower on this lap, so I think he's either going to dive it into the pits or just warming up again for another lap. Amadi doing something similar. Carlsbury, he had a pretty good race last time out, and he's 1.5 seconds up on his personal best, just coming through the final chicane. Now, this could challenge maybe Perpetuum and Scuba.
Yeah, I think it could be around Combi sort of area, possibly with this lap time. Carlsbury comes across the line. He goes third with a 38.5. Good lap time there by the Finn. And Carlsbury well up there at the top. It's Zhao Zhao who leads Perpetuum second. Carlsbury in third at this stage. Combi is also on a lap time coming through the first sector. And Combi's first sector, 36.6. Through the first sector, he's a 10th down on Hypers, and Hyper is ahead of him out on track, and he's now running up in towards Spoon, and he has actually got right tail plate damage on that car, it seems. So Hyper has picked up some damage on that car. Doesn't look like it's affecting him to set a first sector like that. He might be down in this middle sector, or spins the car. That's pretty much him now done, as he now nearly got a spin on coming through there. Combi, though, out into the middle sector, now coming through Spoon.
Yeah, I wonder if he got that damage just at the exit of Sector 1, so maybe coming through Videgnez, just spinning over towards that right-hand side. You do see that happen quite often. Laser, interestingly, was still going round on the wet tyres. He's not left himself a lot of time to get on a set of intermediates and really get used to what the track feels like on those tyres, so don't be too surprised if Laser's towards the back of the grid, but very interesting that he's hung on to those wets for a lot longer than everyone else has.
I think, actually, looking at these middle sector times, I think we might be looking at wet conditions, possibly. Combi's just about to start a lap, but he made a mistake in the middle sector. But then again, Yul Melmat, as Armadi goes up to 7th with a 138.8, and Noon improves as well to 138.8 as well. So that just dispels my theory of it being wet conditions. All of these guys now go on a set of inters, if you're listening. Go on a set of inters. Zhao Zhao on top, Perpetuum second, Carlsbury in third. Never rely, though, on a B-Tech Jeff in the commentary box.
Yeah, Dobby, his best lap so far has been on a set of wets, but he is currently on a set of the intermediate tyres, so it does look as though he's maybe going to improve. He was slightly up through Sector 1, so I think that proves what we're saying. It has been very borderline conditions all session long. It's just now that you've got a bit of a drier line forming, you're going to risk for the intermediates because they are going to have the ultimate pace. And there we go, it says Perpetuum in the pits is looking at a set of wet tyres, but if it is wet tyres now, surely you might as well just retire from the session and you've had the best out of the live for them.
Yep, green first sectors, by the way. Combi and Armadi, green first sectors out on track. Dobby through the middle sector, he's green throughout this lap, and it's a 44 flat, actually. Through the middle sector, he's on a set of inters. He actually just nearly invalidates coming through Casio, and now comes out through the final corner, out on track. Dobby, good improve, comes across the line, goes 5th. Good improvement there from Dobby, up for second, 38.7. His lap time out on track. We'll have him right on board with Combi, who's coming through the middle sector as he now comes through in this middle sector split. And looking at his middle sector, again, bit of a disastrous middle sector, 44.1, 43.9 from Armadi, just in behind him. And now Armadi comes through the final corner, so does Combi. A minute and a half to go. Zhao Zhao out on top of Perpetuum second. Combi now is still in 7th. He did improve on that lap time. Armadi comes across the line, didn't improve on that lap time, and he stays in 9th for now. Kumblai is up in the middle sector, I think, though. He's not on the... he is actually on a valid lap. It's 36.4 through the first sector.
Yeah, good lap from Santeri. He goes into second position. Closest man to Zhao Zhao, just under 4 tenths behind. And I think normally you've seen the entire top 10 separated by that gap in some of these qualifying sections. Nicholas was up coming through Sector 1, but I think he's just backed off his lap ever so slightly. We're seeing Kuhn Bleich is going faster now. He's coming through the final sector of this lap as well. So maybe getting himself into the top 10 because he was one of the first drivers, let's not forget, to go out onto a set of intermediates. This is very much looking like one of those sessions where you want to be the last person now across the finish line, and you could well have the best of the track conditions. The Red Bull driver up into 5th.
Yeah, good improvement there from Kumbloy out on track. I think we've got Scuba on a lap as well, coming through the middle sector. 36.6 through the first, 44.1 through the middle, so he might be just a couple of tenths down. There was a yellow flag in sector 3. I think it was a Williams of Perpetuum getting out of the way to the right-hand side. But now Scuba comes out through the final couple of corners. The Irishman, the Division 2 champion from last season, will be hoping to try and improve on this lap time. Scuba comes across the line, doesn't improve, but he goes on to a final lap. Combi is out on a lap time as well. Combi through the middle sector, just trying to get him 36.5 through the first. An improvement there from Scuba on an 18.1 in the final sector as well. 54.1. Combi is pretty much done. I would say out on track, he's got not enough time to try and complete. I'm just trying to see who might be one of the furthest on out on track. Well, it might be Santeri, who's actually improving, coming through the middle sector. He was fastest in the first, compared to Zhao Zhao, a 36 flat, a 43.7. Santeri's got a challenge for pole. Santeri now at the final corner, comes across the line, and he goes pole with a 137.7. I don't think Zhao Zhao's improving. He's coming out the hairpin, and Perpetuum has gone crashing into the wall. Goodness me, that is hard contact. I think that's coming through Dunlop Curve, if I'm not mistaken. Perpetuum nearly flipping the car upside down. A horrible crash for the German, and he's not going to be improving up on his lap either.
No, Zhao Zhao was at 7 tenths down coming through sector 1, and now he's invalidated his lap, so it's certain that we're not getting improvement from him. Lars goes into 3rd place. Nicholas, his first race of the season, now goes into 4th. Hyper's coming around the final few corners now. Kumblaij has gone into 7th place. We'll see what Hyper can do as he comes round the final couple of corners. Can he get himself into the top 10? He does indeed. Goes into 3rd position. I think it's one of the Renaults next. Laser, he's not set a lap time whatever, so he's going to be starting in 19th place. Lemon has invalidated on his lap as well. Dobby's a couple of tenths up through sector 2 at the moment, so this should go him slightly up the order. He improves into 5th place. I think Scuba's going to be the final car. He takes 6th position. And it's Santeri. He was meant to be a full-time driver this season, but in the end had to drop down to reserve. And I think some of the other drivers might be glad that he has after that session. 137.723. He's on pole.
And what is it with the IFR guys out on track? Goodness me, they're 5 tenths ahead compared to Vapor Hyper in 3rd position, and Lars is only 8 thousandths off. But what a session from both the IFR boys out on track. Santeri has beaten his fellow Scandinavian Zhao Zhao out on track. The Finn defeats the Dane out on track, and the Finn is out on top, 800ths of a second separating between Santeri and Zhao Zhao. Only over 5 tenths of a second separating 2nd and 3rd, with Viper Hyper in 3rd, Lars in 4th, with Dobby in 5th, Scuba in 6th. How's that for consistency between Dobby and Scuba? Just the 6,000 separating between each of them. Dobby, Scuba and Nicholas 5th, 6th and 7th. Perpetuum in 8th. Cosbury in 9th. Kumbloy ran off the top 10 less than a second, separating the top 10. Noon 11th. Combi in 12th. Armady 13th. Nathan 14th. Yulmelmat 15th. Lemon 16th. Volbeek 17th. Mikras, the only other IFR driver not to get a time in. And Laser either got invalidations plenty, or he just didn't find the time to get a lap in, and he's down in 19th.
Yeah, Laser, he kept with her wet tyres towards the end, and the fact that he was invalidated suggests maybe they were starting to overheat at some parts of the track. That racing line was definitely wet, but it wasn't fully wet, and was still going to have wet session for the start of the race by the looks of things, but definitely, at worst, intermediate conditions, and if it lightens up, you might even see dries after the first few laps.
Yeah, you might do indeed, and one thing to talk about is the weather out on track, because Japan really does like to throw up a few curveballs for these guys out on track, and it's going to be fascinating to see how this is all going to unfold out on track, and how this is all going to really try and tighten up as we have a look once again at this track map in question. 5.8 kilometers in length. Right. We cannot wait to bring you the action out on track, and I'm sure it is going to be fascinating. Yeah, the rain is a lot lighter, you can tell, as we now get into the session. The rain a lot lighter out on track, onto a set of intermediate condition tyres everyone will go on, and that surely is going to give the advantage to the top 2.
Yeah, we saw last time out how difficult it was to overtake. That a run down towards turn 1 on the start might be possible. Hopefully no 1990 antics, as the pole is on the outside this time, not on the inside like it was then, so it is on the racing line. No DRS, obviously, in these conditions, and it will be straightforward intermediate tyres for everyone. What might make this interesting, when or if the rain's going to stop, it might even end up getting heavier. That's going to obviously depend on what tyres you go on towards the end of the race. Will you be able to put on a set of mediums, set of softs, or will the rain stop that early on? Hards will be the only option towards the end. Very intriguing indeed.
Very intriguing indeed, and you can see the rain falling very lightly. Santeri struggling to warm up the tyres, coming through the S section, sliding about, and if that's anything to go by, you might have a slightly unstable setup on that car, which might mean Zhao Zhao could get the run on him just in front. But 27 laps awaiting these guys out on track. Japan does like to throw up a lot of curveballs, I've got to be honest, but looking further down the field, everyone on a set of inters, they're on a fresh set of inters as well. I'm not sure if they do get the free choice of tyre. I think they do within the race, and obviously everyone has swapped for the set of inters. Anyone further down the field that could catch your eye?
Ooh, there's some obviously from very fast drivers. I can confirm with Taz, you do get a fresh set of tyres. Mick Fast looked pretty good last week in these conditions. Struggled a bit in stint 1. But his tyre wear was pretty good, so that could help him. That could help him out in the race. If it does stay intermediates, it will be a one-stop race. Nathan, extremely quick driver. Apparently Lemon had some problem with the game, and that's why he's only down in 16th position. There's some quick drivers outside that top 10, and at the lower part of the top 10. Perpetuum only in 8th position. We'll see what he can do, because he's not afraid of going for some moves, and you are going to have to be brave. This time out, you are going to have to be brave. No DRS, obviously. You'll have to be a bit more imaginative when you're going for these overtakes.
Yeah, predicted pit stop strategy just coming up on my screen now. Up 13 to 17, one stop onto a fresh set of inters towards the middle of the race. Perpetuum, by the way, has been cleared. I'm very glad to report from the medical centre. Of course, it is just sim racing, but he has been cleared to race, and good job, because that was a horrific accident. Full force down into Dunlop curve. Santeri, though, out on top. Zhao Zhao second, Hyper in third. The final cars are now coming around the final corners as Noon and Combi have made a collision with each other. Luke, I'm going to come across to you. Who's your top three?
I don't think I'm going to go Zhao Zhao to take the victory. Santeri for second position, and I think Perpetuum's going to work his way up towards the podium. Very experienced driver, didn't win a championship for nothing. I think he's going to pick his moves and make them count.
Very different, very weird camera angles there for the top two. I'm going to cut to Vapor just in case. Goodness me, you don't want to be seeing somebody's wheel or somebody's front wing. Santeri out on top, Zhao Zhao in second, and there is the rundown. In towards turn one, the Finn is now going to be hoping to try and get the Dane running down in towards turn one. And we're about to get going. Season 4. Oh, as Noon has picked up a drive-through penalty. It's light down, and away we go. Great start by Vapor, in behind, and Zhao Zhao's got an electric start as well. Zhao Zhao leads the way. There's a car on the grass. It's Nicholas on the grass running down in towards turn 1. It hasn't happened immediately, and Zhao Zhao leads. Santeri second. Vapor in third. The front three pretty much stay as they are, apart from Santeri losing a position. Carlsby and Dobby going side by side. Carlsby now through, and he's into sixth. Nathan, Noon has been caught up in a collision, maybe with Nathan there as well. Nathan running side by side with him, I think has made contact with his own teammate, Ahmed D, and Nicholas are going side by side as well, further down the field in 11th and 12th. Bullbeak right on the back of that, but a great start by Zhao Zhao. He leads 6/10 of a second. Perpetuum hasn't made any progress just yet, but he's right on the back of his teammate Dobby out on track. But a great start by Zhao Zhao, and it comes to show Clearer is really going to punish you, and he's already a second clear.
Are we surprised that Zhao Zhao had a good start? Are we really surprised? He does it every single week. I need to ask what the exact trick is and try and learn, because if there's one thing I'm bad at, and there's many things I'm bad at, it is starting. Lemon and Volbeek are going side by side here. The two TTG boys are battling. I don't know how much grip there is going to be offline, and I think in the own Volbeek thinks, you know what, discretion's the better part of valour. I'll just sit in behind for now. I don't want to be spinning around on lap 1. Niklas does have some damage, so I wonder if he was the driver who made contact with Noon.
Yeah, he's got left side lamp plate damage, 44% it shows on task. Carlsbury right on the back of Lars, running up in towards 130R. He's not going to try the impossible to go around the outside. Oh, they nearly hitbox each other coming through 130R. Lars is just about ahead of Carlsbury and now allows Dobby and Perpetuum and Nathan to close up onto the back as well. Nicholas is not too far off this either. Combi is on the back of Volby coming across the line now, 1.5 seconds the gap from that man there, not that man there, not that man there. It's Jojo who leads the way from Santeri in second, Vapor in third, and Scuba in fourth. Scuba right on the back of Vapor coming through turn one. Carlsbury and Lars are going side by side, nearly going inside of each other as they now come through the S section, but a really good start. Let's have a look at the position gains out on track through the early stages. It says that Miklas has gained 15 positions, but it's definitely not true out on track. But Jojo has gained one, Santeri has lost one, Hyper has remained in position as well, looking further down the field. Very confusing given the state of the graphics left hand side. Finally they're going to fix themselves as Jojo has remained in the lead of the race and has actually gained one position. There are the correct standings. Nathan really making up ground though. He's up into 9th position behind Perpetuum and he's gained 5 positions.
Yeah, had a fantastic start. There was a bit of chaos further back. I did see a racing point going actually on the grass on the run down to turn 1, so whether that was actually Niklas and that's where he picked up the damage off the start line, I'm not quite sure, because I doubt his teammate managed to go on the grass and somehow gain 4 possessions. And you can see why Lemon was so determined to try and work his way past Volby, because he's really dropped the Renault driver. I'm a D all over the back of Cone Blige, but there's still quite a lot of spray at the moment. I think at some parts of the track it definitely looks brighter as they look like on the run down towards turn 1. It doesn't look too bad. As I headed up the hill into 130R, it does look a bit darker, so I'm not quite sure which way the weather is going to go in this race and which way the strategies are going to go either. I think one thing is safe. Zhao is doing what Verstappen did at the weekend. He's just sending it at the start of this race, building up a bit of a gap. The trick is, can you do it without wearing your tail wear compared to the others? And it doesn't really look too much worse compared to the other drivers, so he's not doing bad whatsoever in that fact. It's everyone else, I think, will be hoping now that this dries up or they can try something different on the strategy, because this is looking very familiar from last week.
Yeah, 12% in terms of the tyres for Jojo, 13% it's just ticked up to Santeri. You would imagine is on the same point as well as Hyper. He's on 14%. Looking further down the field, Nathan is the one that's in trouble early. He's on 15% on those rears as Miklas has gone through and Yul Melmat is dropping down the field, passed by Laser. So I wonder if there was a little bit of contact further down the field. But there is the man out in front. There is Jojo, and he's absolutely excelling out on track. Santeri is in second, playing rear gunner at this stage. Scuba tried to look for the move there, down in towards the hairpin, wasn't quite close enough. The Irishman on the back of the German, just in third and fourth, but Jojo leading the way, Santeri in second and Scuba in third. Looking further down the field, Lemon right on the back of Ahmed D, and also Combi is under pressure from he's trying to pressurise Volbeek, I should say, in 13th position out on track. I'll leave you with this battle for 11th, for 10th out on track with Kumbly just ahead. Lemon right on the back of Ahmed D.
Yeah, here's Lemon all over the back of Ahmed, climbing up the hill. Not able to do a lot, though, with the spray at this moment in time. Your best opportunity, as we said earlier, is going to be into the Casio Triangle. Maybe if the car in front has a slight wobble coming through 130R. Otherwise, it is going to be quite difficult, I think, to see too many overtakes in this race. But these drivers are starting to definitely drop off now. Kumblige more than a second behind Nathan as things stand at the moment. He's got Ahmed, Lemon, Volby, Combi, Mikras all in a train behind him, but it is all just pretty much single file at this moment in time. In the front of this race, so Zhao still leading from Santeri. He's got Hyper, Scuba, Lars quite a bit behind his teammate at this moment in time. In 5th position, Carlsbury, Dobby, Perpetuum, Nathan, and then this battle as things stand at the moment. Lemon just trying to stay patient. It's what you've got to do, is not spend too much time worrying. Just try and save a bit of tyres, save a bit of ERS. Oh, Volbeek in the background's gone into the wall. That's going to be major front wing damage for him. Thankfully, he's still got his wheel, but that is a definite pit stop for him onto another set of the intermediate tyres, and things going pretty bad for some of the TTG drivers. Volbeek with the front wing damage, and Niklas obviously picking up that damage early on as well. So maybe Lemon now can afford to be a bit braver. He can afford to go for it a tiny bit more, knowing that he's got a 1.6 second gap now back to Combi behind. So if you do go slightly deep into a corner, if you do try something different, you know you're not going to be pressured by the driver behind you. But in these conditions, with the drivers sticking to the racing line, we saw in the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix with Lewis Hamilton trying to lap George Russell, it's like a railway track at the moment. You can only go on track, you can't go off whatsoever, because you're going to have absolutely no grip whatsoever at this time. Oh, and now Cole Blige is in the wall. That's a big crash. That is a virtual safety car, and that's what I was saying. You go slightly offline, you are going to have big trouble. Coonblide then out of the race, our first retirement, and Lemon deciding to come into the pits. Now, is this just for a fresher set of the intermediate tyres? Because it's definitely still raining out on track, and he hasn't got any damage, so I'm not quite sure why you would come into the pits at this point, unless you're feeling extremely brave and you're going for a set of the hard tyres. Now, they're going to struggle to heat up, and there's definitely still rain coming out there, so that is a very interesting strategy then from Lemon to go for a set of the hard tyres. Volbeek's put on another set of the intermediates. We are back to green flag racing, and we'll just stick on board with Lemon and see what it is like at the moment. It is going to be like an ice rink, I feel, for the TTG driver. Noon gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Things are really going from bad to worse for him, and he's another one to go out on a set of the hard tyres. The rain has almost stopped out on track, and we'll be able to give you a clue next lap around roughly what his sector times are, but at the moment he's just going to be struggling around the field for the next few laps. Definitely, surely that is too early to come in for a set of the dry tyres. You just hear him struggling on the throttle out of some of these corners as he comes through with Degnas there. Can go fully on the brakes, being very careful. Wheel spinning 4th gear there. You can see Nicholas just closing in behind him, his teammate. It is definitely too early. He thought he might as well get a cheap pit stop in under the VSC period, but definitely not the right idea at this moment in time. Just a few laps, I think, too early. The rain has now stopped out on circuit, but whatever time he's gained, he's onto the grass coming through there. Did very well to hold on to that car. Nicholas comes flying through as well. Now, when will some of the other drivers pit? It looks as though you are going to have to go onto a set of the hard tyres, maybe the mediums if you're feeling brave towards the end of the race without getting a puncture. You might just be about to do it, but you can see Lemon really struggling at the moment. Nicholas has already gained ahead. Perpetuum and Nathan, they're swapping over further up field. Perpetuum and Nathan for 8th and 9th position, and I think Nathan might actually be able to get this one. Oh, there's been contact between those two. Apologies that you haven't got these pictures, but Nathan spins around. He drops down the field. No damage for him. Lemon absolutely struggling on his tyres at the moment. Volbeek works his way ahead of him. Nicholas, Nathan, I should say, struggling to get back out on circuit now that he's been off track, now that he's been on the wetter line. He's all the way down in 14th, and he'll try and fight his way up the order. So much spray coming off the back of these cars. Definitely still only really ready for a set of the intermediate tyres at this moment in time. Lemon has been off track again, going for the hards. I can kind of see why you went for it if you're Noon. You're way down in last place. You haven't really got a lot to lose. I think Lemon, any chance of him getting a good result is just going out the window, and he's left the session. I don't want to say that was a rage quit, but it definitely had a bit of a feeling like Lemon knows he's made a bit of a bad mistake here. Noon retires in the pits just way too early for the dry tyres, and Scuba all over the back of Vapor Hyper here. Can Scuba get the move done? No, he can't. Can he get the cutback, though, on the exit and use that power of the ERS? No DRS. Be careful not to drift your way into the pit lane. Vapor goes defensive. He will hold on to that position. We're approaching the changeover point, but it is definitely still intermediates, but at least for the next 2 or 3 laps, I'd say, James.
Yeah, I would say lap 9 or lap 10 possibly are going to be the guys coming in for that set of dry compounder tyres out on track. Well, what have I missed? JJ leading the way, Santeri second, Hyper third, Scuba fourth, Lars in fifth, just to bring you up to date. Dobby right on the back of Carlsbury as well. Noon out of the race, retired in the pit lane on a set of soft compounder tyre. Obviously too early. Lemon's AI, I should say, still going round out on track, so he can rejoin the session if and only if he's going to go in. Volbeek is the next one to come in, possibly for that dry compound of strategy, but Scuba on the back of Hyper, third and fourth. The Irishman still attacking the German.
Yeah, he is. Volbeek's now gone for a set of the medium tyres. That is pretty brave at this moment in time, and Scuba, he's doing very well at the moment. I was expecting his teammate to maybe be a bit further up and challenging him, but Lars hasn't been able to at this moment in time. Just trying to look off the back of some of these cars. There's still spray coming off the front tyres. It's not ready yet for a set of the slick tyres. Maybe next lap if you're feeling brave. Volbeek should do better than the others did on a set of the mediums compared to them on the hards, because the mediums will build up temperature a bit, but it's still going to be a very sketchy lap or two here as Lemon's AI comes in for the intermediate tyres, proving that sometimes, just sometimes, artificial intelligence does beat actual human intelligence. Scuba He's so close.
Zhao
If
Zhao's
DRS
in.
was active, he'd get this done. Zhao Zhao's coming to the pits. Has Zhao Zhao called it right? And I think, yeah, now everyone's deciding this is the lap. I think Jeff has been on the phone and said, come in this lap.
Yeah, and there is a dry compound tie right. It's a set of hards for Zhao Zhao. He's not going to be held up in the pit lane. He's going to be out of the pit lane in front. And Terry held up slightly, but he is going to come out in a bit of traffic here, Zhao Zhao. Everyone going on a lap extra could gain as a result. And actually, Zhao Zhao, he's not going to get up in any traffic because he's going to be absolutely clear sailing out on track. We're right on board with him coming out the pit lane. I see absolutely no spray on that car coming out through turn 1 and 2. It is going to be quite leery for him out on track, but the Dane, it is going to be crucial. Is he going to gain through the second half of this lap? He looks like he's taking it very cautiously indeed out on track. The more cautious he is, though, he's got to actually pick up the pace, because the more cautious he is, it's going to let that man there in the lead of the race out on track, Lars, right into play, because already Zhao Zhao's lost a second as the yellow flag in sector 1, and it is somebody, and it's Dobby, who has gone off through the S section.
Yeah, Zhao Zhao, he's lost about 1.5 seconds through sector 1, if I'm being perfectly honest, on this lap. So, he'll still be safe for the lead of the race. DRS enabled, that says all you need to know about whether the track is ready. So maybe Lemon's AI wasn't quite as smart as I thought it was. But DRS has been enabled, but everyone's just having to be so careful, especially on the hard tyres. They take a while to build up heat, and at a lot of tracks, you don't like using the dry tyres. There's another yellow flag, that'll be Volbeek, in fact, on a set of the medium. So Zhao Zhao, maybe now we'll start seeing him pull away and, well, catch up, I should say, to those ahead. But he's definitely lost. By the time I think Lars comes into the pitch, you can definitely say he'll have lost 1.5 to 2 seconds here. And that means Lars might actually be able to get the jump on Scuba. And it will put Perpetuum, Imadi, Combi, Laser and Jean Melmat further up the order as well. All those drivers come back into the pit. Zhao Zhao will be back in the lead of this race. But we might see a mixture now of drivers going for the mediums and going for the hards. So that could get very interesting later on in the race.
And that's exactly what we've just seen. Speaking of just seen, Nathan is through on Mikras, running down in towards 130R, and the mediums clearly coming into play, and he's through, and he's into 12th position. I wonder where this is going to land him out, actually, with the likes of Lars. He's just picked up a 3-second time, which is typical of me and Nathan, to be honest, out on track. I think he's going to be ahead of Yul Melmat and Laser, possibly, coming across the line. The other guy is just coming out the pit lane. In fact, there's Yul Melmat, so actually Nathan is behind, but he's in clear air. Combi is side by side with Carlsbury coming out through turn 1, and Dobby has retired. I think that's into the pit lane. Dobby has retired out on track on a set of hard compound tyres. An absolute disaster for him out on track, and that means he's out of the race, and it's the third DNF of tonight.
Yeah, it is. I'll say Noon and Dobby retiring in the pits. Kumblai with that big crash which caused all the problems. You've noticed how the drivers are keeping it fairly clean. I say as Imadi actually nearly went into the back of Hyper there on the mediums. It's because it's an old school circuit. You tend to stick within the white lines on this track because there's not some nice tarmac. Once you go off the white lines, there's some grass and gravel, and it'll be pretty wet on them curves at the moment as Volbeek makes it another driver retiring in the pits. He's out of this race, so we are down to effectively 14 runners all of a sudden. Lars gaining a lot in their pits, and you can just see how much he gained in all that by the fact he was about 2 seconds behind his teammate when he came into the pits. He's now about 3 or 4 seconds behind him, about 4 cars in front of him as well. So it's not worked out for Scuba. That extra lap has definitely worked out for Lars. Imadi all over the back of Vapor Hyper, down the inside into 130R. That's going to be very brave in these conditions. Still, you've got Hyper trying to hang on round the outside into the chicane. Imadi should have the grip on the exit to get this move done. Gets it ahead. Hyper gets chopped off as well, so he can't get a good exit. Maybe that'll give Scuba a bit of a chance in getting back ahead of the Alpha Tauri driver. And no, Hyper actually does have the DRS, but Imadi, he's got to do those moves. He's got to use those media tyres, as we've had another spinner, and that is Nicholas at Spoon. Nathan sets the fastest lap of the race. Mediums are the tyres to be on at this moment in time. Whether there will be in about 15 laps' time remains to be seen.
Yeah, and look at the gap that Lars is closing up to the back of Santeri. He is just within the DRS range, nearly out on track. They've got a racing point ahead, of course, of Lemon, but Jaja leading the way, Santeri second, Lars in third, and Lars is clearly excelling out on track. It might be his first race here in TTML, but he looks like an experienced driver at this stage, and he's 8.5 tenths behind Santeri and closing in down in towards the hairpin. It's now about 6 tenths of a second as he comes out on the exit of the hairpin. It's an absolute brilliant exit as well from Lars that he gets. He's on the back of Santeri trying to hunt him down, and Lars will be hoping to try and make more inroads further up the field, I should say, further down the field. Laser and Combi are now under pressure from the likes of Nathan and Yul Melmat in behind, but Laser and Combi are trying to pressurise Carlsbury in all of this as well. And Carlsbury in 8th position. There's the view from his rear wing. Combi in 9th and Laser in 10th. You would imagine that Laser is probably in the prime spot. He's on a set of medium compound tyres, 4 tenths off the back of Combi. You would surely imagine he's going to try and get 1, if not 2 of them here. Yeah,
Zhao sets the fastest lap of the race. I'm surprised Laser didn't use a bit of ERS coming on the run down, well, the run up, I should say, towards 130R, because that would have been a prime point to have a go into the chicane, because we saw that obviously worked fantastically early on for Amity. Zhao did set the fastest lap of the race.
Sorry to cut in. Scuba's going around the outside of Vapor, trying to get the move done through turn 1, now through turn 2. This will be brilliant from Scuba if he can pull it off. He's now on the inside line through 3, just about shuts the door. He gets the switch back though, coming through 4, and now tries to go side by side through 5. It's not going to work. He's still there on the inside line. Their hammers apart out on track, and now they come up through Dunlop Curve, and Scuba runs wide. He's still nearly side by side, but he has to give in. Try as he might. That was a brilliant battle, but look what it's done in behind. Carlsbury, Combi, Laser, Nathan now made into a 6-car fight for 6th.
Carlsbury will be delighted with that, because he's now got he's going to have the DRS this time around. Lars, I was about to say, was a second a lap faster than Zhao on the previous lap. Unfortunately, we can't see what Zhao's tyres wears like. Combi and Laser coming side by side, out of their hairpin. Lasers all over the back of him at this moment in time. Can't afford to do anything too risky though, because that might give Nathan a shot. Now we'll see how they do through Spoon, and you've got Lars and Santeri coming up ahead. I think you pick one of these battles to keep an eye on, James, and I'm going to have to keep an eye on the other one.
Amadee's gone side by side with Perpetuum around the outside through 130R, gets the move done. He runs wide though, could pick up a 3-second time penalty as a result. But Amadee on a set of mediums, ghosting through a racing form, which is not what you like to see. PG18 here, of course, but Lars right on the back of Santeri now, running down the straight, and Santeri is going to be under a lot of pressure, and he's going to be passed by Lars. Down in towards turn 1, Lars is through, and he's into 2nd position. But Zhao's advantage that early on in the race is now 4 seconds out on track. Scuba is side by side with Hyper once again, coming through turn 1 and 2. And we saw this great battle last lap around. Scuba is going to get the move done this time. You bet he can. Scuba, the Division 2 champ from last season, is through on Vapor, and twice is a charm here in TTML Division 1.
Yeah, very impressive, because Vapor was able to fight it off first time. I think with a bit of fortune, went very late on the brakes into one of the parts of the S's there and got away with it. That time though, Scuba was wise to it and worked his way ahead. Fantastic move from Scuba. Now we'll see if he's got more pace than Vapor in the race, because obviously he's been stuck behind him all the way along, or whether he'll now be the man.
Laser's down the inside trying to force the issue. That's an impossible gap to go. What's he trying to do there? Laser stays in 10th, but goodness me, he was nearly up in the grass to try and get past Combi. Lars, by the way, closing on Zhao's already got 1.5 seconds to Santeri.
Yeah, but Nathan's going to go down the inside of the second part of Spoon. Laser ran a bit wide there. That half opened the door for Nathan, and I think that's the second time we've seen Nathan go for like a half open move that was probably always going to close. He spins round again. He's down in 13th place. He's going to have to do all that hard work once more. Zhao pushing extremely hard at the moment, but Lars was 1.2 seconds faster on that lap. He's nearly within penalty range. It's all going to depend, I think, on whether those medium tyres last and whether Lars gets any penalties. He is only one warning away from it at this moment in time, and I think everything has calmed down a bit further on. What might be the next one to look at is Imadi. Closed up 1.5 seconds on the last lap to Santeri. He's now only 1.5 seconds behind. Might be all over the back of him as we head into lap 14.
Yeah, Lars right on the back of Zhao as well. I can tell you they've got more action in this race than in a whole season of the European Super League. Zhao leads the way. Lars in 2nd, Santeri 3rd, Imadi in 4th, Perpetuum in 5th. That went down like a sack of spuds. Scuba in 6th, with Vapor in 7th, Carlsbury 8th, Combi 9th, Laser in 10th. You'll Melmat on the back of these guys as well, but look at Imadi's progress. He's 1.1 seconds now off the back of Santeri, and is looking to try and close on the back of him this lap around. The Brit against the Finn out on track, and Zhao currently holding the advantage. It's 3.5 seconds. Lars is closing in, but he's not closing in as quickly as one would imagine. On a set of medium compound tyres, they've got fresher set of tyres, but there will come a point, there'll come a crossover period, probably in about 6 or 7 laps time, on around lap 19 or lap 20, where the hards will get quicker than the mediums. So Lars has got to get within that 3-second range, and he's got to get within it now as Perpetuum closes up to the back of Armour D.
Yeah, he's got to be careful as well to make sure he doesn't get a penalty, doesn't wear his tyres out too much. Last lap around he was about 0.3 faster. Perpetuum was actually the fastest car out on circuit, so maybe we're already not too far away from that crossover point, and it's now Scuba who is in complete free air, so we can't see that was DRS assisted. Carlsberry's going to work his way past Vapor. Laser has got past Combi as well. Bit of a bad lap for the Alpha Tauri boys there, so they're now down to 8th and 10th. Carlsberry and Laser up to 7th and 9th respectively. If I was Lars, I'd just try and be careful at the moment. Make sure you don't get a penalty, make sure you don't head off track, but see if you can get within that 3-second window that you need to win this race. You don't need to do the overtake, and you are going to have to do some tyre management at the end. I don't think there's much point on him just blasting up to the back of Jiao Jiao and getting stuck in dirty air.
But you might be right, actually, about the crossover period, because Lars has not gained on this lap at all. In fact, he's lost 0.2 of a second coming through the first and the middle sector so far. Lars just flying through camera shot lanes, 3.3 seconds in behind Jiao Jiao. But look at him. He is not really closing up now to the back of Jiao Jiao. So maybe that crossover period is ahead of what even I expected out on track. And normally I'm the one that's quite spot on with some of these things, but you can't predict things as Carlsberry picks up a 3-second time penalty out on track. Armour D, though, could be this time around, and he tries to get onto the back of Santeri, running out of 130R. 4.5 tenths separating as they run down in towards 130R, and again, the Brit and the Finn lock up in towards the Casio Triangle. Santeri third, Jiao Jiao responds, new fastest lap of the race, 29.5, 2 tenths quicker than Perpetuum last time around. Perpetuum's not too far off the back of this either, as Armour D now hunts down on the back of Santeri, runs to the inside line, coming through turn 1, and the Brit is surely through, or is he? Santeri tries to go all the way around the outside, the Finn against the Brit, and the Brit is going to hang on. Santeri lets him go. Armour D now is into third, but Santeri, surely you would imagine the set of hards are going to come into play on the set of mediums ahead, and Armour D might just necessarily slow up, but as soon as I say that, Armour D just shut up the road by 7 tenths.
Yeah, Santeri sort of gave that place up as Lars now gets the penalty, so that changes things quite a lot at the front of this race. He's now got to try and do it out on track, and I think already you're not going to pull in 3.4 seconds on the mediums on a set of hards. Ideal for Armour D, but he's now in a situation, compare it to the weekend, I think he's now in a similar situation to what Lando Norris was had. It's in his interest, I think, to keep Santeri within a second of him, because that gives him the DRS and makes it harder for Perpetuum to pass, because Perpetuum looks to have the most pace of all these three. If Armour D lets Perpetuum get DRS off Santeri and Santeri doesn't have it, I don't think the Haas will be able to defend. Perpetuum will get right on the back of Armour D, and I'm not sure how much the McLaren will defend at the end of this race. So Armour D's pushing hard, clearly, to get outside that DRS zone. Not sure that's the smartest move.
Yeah, 9.5 tenths running down into the Casio Triangle, so Santeri is within DRS range on the back of Armour D. He now comes out through the final corner and comes across the line, but is it enough to try and defend from Perpetuum? It looks like it is. He's going down the straight, and Perpetuum not really closing up that much. Santeri stays in 4th, Perpetuum stays in 5th for now. Carlsberry on the back now of Scuba, running down in towards turn 1. Don't think we're going to see him move here. Yul Melmat's getting quite close to the back of Laser as well, but these guys running in a DRS train as they come through. Armour D is making good progress on the back of Lars. It's 2.5 seconds still the gap though, and he's not really trying to gain as much as what we would have been expecting. This is falling back into Santeri's lap, I think. Out on track, Santeri is doing what I would probably do in this stage as well. He's just waiting for Armour D possibly to try and drag him along into this battle. But what's the point in being behind when you're not really going to be dragged along by a guy that you ran the same pace as?
Yeah, exactly. And looking at the difference in the tyre life here, Armour D has 1 lap fresher tyres. In terms of tyre life difference, he's only got about 4 or 5% older at this moment in time. And looking at how many laps are left, trying to do some quick maths here, we will be at quite a risk of getting a puncture towards the end of the race, but the hard tyres might not be too far off either. So maybe the crossover point hasn't come quite yet, and it's more that the hards have just built up their temperature more and more as the track has begun to dry out more and more as well. Scuba's not been able to get away from Carlsberry, who's obviously got past Vapor Hyper earlier on, and Laser looks to be dropping back from that ever so slightly as well. Things have just calmed down, I think, after the madness of earlier on, but I'm sure in a few laps' time, as we get closer and closer towards the end of the race, they'll spice up once more.
Well, it's going to kick off right away because Carlsbury's going to get past on Scuba, running down in towards turn one. Carlsbury through on Scuba, and he's down on the straight through, and he's into sixth position. Literally, if you say that, one move was already made. Carlsbury through, and he's into sixth position. Hyper trying to get onto the back of these as well. Laser is not entirely out of this on a set of medium compounded tires. You'll Melmat not entirely out of this either. Looking at the position gains as well out on track, Armadi has gained 10 positions out on track from his starting grid. That was in 13th position, of course. He's 2.4 seconds off the back of Lars, not really making any impact, but it just seems to me, possibly, I'm not sure if it's the case of the ERS out on track in terms of Zhao Zhao, but he's got 86% of ERS. Lars out on track, and I'm just going to flick on the lap data to try and show the telemetry on the bottom right. He's got 10% out on track, and Zhao Zhao out on track has got, what, 70% more ERS, and he's only beginning to pull away now.
Yeah, and also, Lars, actually, we're not able to see his fuel usage, unfortunately, but Zhao Zhao, he's got a tiny bit of spare fuel if he wants to use it as well, which is good news for him. But yeah, Zhao Zhao by far more ERS than anyone in the field, which suggests this is just pretty comfortable pace for him. Ooh. At the moment. Imad now gets a penalty, so that's good news for Santevi and Perpetuum. So as the drivers are beginning to push a bit more, go towards the boundaries of the track, we might see more and more of these penalties. And Perpetuum's actually closing up to Santevi. He's just going to be too far behind into turn one. But that's what I said. The Haas has got the DRS. It stops Perpetuum getting ahead. Whether this is helping Imad or not, we'll find out by the end of the race. But it's definitely frustrating the Williams driver.
Yeah, if that straight was 50 yards longer, I think Perpetuum would have got that move down in towards turn one, but it just got close up for the pass. He didn't close up enough to try and get the move done on Santevi, and we remain as we are. Imad third, Santevi fourth, Perpetuum in fifth. Carlsbury in sixth. Carlsbury's losing time now. So the likes of Perpetuum just ahead. He's got a 3-second time penalty on that car as well. And looking at the penalties, there they are. 3 seconds for the top three. Carlsbury's got 3, Hyper's got 3, Laser's got 3, Nathan's got 6, and Nicholas has got 3 as well out on track. And we'll flick again to the tyre. But Scuba now on the back of Carlsbury. The Finn against the Irishman, and the Irishman will be hoping in another really good performance here, I've got to say, from Scuba, the TTML Division 2 champion, not Division 1 champion just yet. Scuba, of course, Division 2 champion last season. He's on the back of Carlsbury, and Carlsbury, of course, was on the podium last time out in Britain. Will he be hoping to try and replicate that tonight, as Santeri now begins to bridge in the gap on Imad, and Imad losing time to Lars.
Yeah, Imad losing time to Lars. Santeri just getting caught out in the dirty air ever so slightly. Perpetuum too far back to do anything this time around. I think it's just going to be a status quo. At this point, they're all running fairly low on their ERS. Further down the order, Scuba's not close enough to really challenge for a move on this occasion. It's looking fantastic for Zhao Zhao once again, and this has got to be worrying for the rest of the field. Just how dominant he seems to be, not necessarily in the dry conditions, but in wet conditions. Looks like no one can touch him, and if we go through what the rest of the calendar is this season, China, Canada, basically every single race, you could well see rain. There's no Bahrain or Abu Dhabi to save them on the calendar, so they'll be hoping that they can somehow convince Coen Blythe to set the weather to clear, I think, for the rest of the season. But barring that, they're just going to be hoping it stays dry for the remaining 8 races.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Jaja was just totally dominant, no matter in dry or wet conditions. I think he's got everyone's number at this stage in the season. Of course, we're only 2 rounds in. It's a little bit early still to try and guess who the championship leader is going to be towards the end of the season. But if you're like me and you try and predict the championship result before the season, it's not going too swimmingly bad at all. Jaja out on top, Lars in second, Imad in third. Perpetuum now closing up onto the back of Santeri, and he's using that lap fresher tyres to try and close in as the sun finally begins to break through here in Japan, barely lifting through the clouds, but the sun is about to come out. I think we're going to see blue skies and sunshine in just a matter of laps, possibly out on track. Santeri gets a better exit there than Perpetuum. We're going to remain as we are, though, on to lap 20. 7 more laps to go after this one. Jaja leads Lars second. Imad in third. Looking further down the field, Laser is under pressure from Yul Melmat, and Laser trying to pressurise Vapor in all this as well. Running down towards turn one, and still a 5-way fight, I should say, for 6th down to 10th, and of course Nathan after that mistake is in 13th, but Nathan recovering well. He's 2.5 seconds off the back of Mikras. Mikras had an early moment. You'll Melmat try to go down the inside there with Laser coming through the S section, but Laser just caught up in this little wash out on track. But you would imagine, it certainly looks to me as if the hards are probably getting quicker than a set of mediums. Don't judge that off Lars and Jojo ahead. Judge it from the likes of Hyper and Laser further down the field. Laser is struggling to try and get onto the back of Hyper, and you would imagine with lap pressure tyres and 4% pressure on those tyres, he would be at the same point. But I've just looked at his tyres actually. Laser's got worse tyres than Hyper.
Yeah, I think that's just difference between mediums and hards, but they won't be too bad at the moment. Further up the field, if I was Santeri, around now is when I want to start thinking about making a move on IMD, not just to get ahead of the McLaren, but you're currently, as things stand, 3.6 seconds behind Lars, who has a 3-second penalty, and the gap between Lars and IMD is growing. There's not just the third place is already Santeri's at the moment. He needs to be looking beyond. He needs to be looking at Lars ahead, because he could get a second position in this race, and I think Perpetuum, he might be thinking something similar as well. He might not know about what position Lars is because of the way that the heads-up display is set, but if he gets ahead of Santeri, he might suddenly realise, I can still get the second position in this race.
You'll Melmat down the inside coming through turn 1. Lovely move there by the Dutchman through on the Brit, and Laser has just been, well, laser tagged out on track. You'll Melmat there through, and he's into 9th position. That's one of the worst puns I've ever done, but you'll Melmat through, and he's into 9th position. Lovely move down and towards turn 1.
There's plenty of competition, James, for the worst puns you've ever done. Do not worry about that. But yeah, that says it all now. Laser's tyres just been in the traffic far too long, whereas Lars and I'm a D, and there's been a spinner, and that's Nathan. Once more, it has really been a bit of a tough race for him. Hopefully, he carries on, though, because he is still on to get 7 points at this moment in time. As I was saying, though, Laser's been stuck in traffic for ages. Lars and IMD have pretty much been in free air for the majority of their medium tyre run, so maybe that's why their tyres are in a slightly better condition. We'll see, though, if Laser can just hang on to the back of these guys, and Hyper seems to have found a bit more pace because he had dropped to nearly a second behind Scuba. He's right on the back of the Ferrari now, who is right on the back of Carlsbury as Perpetuum very close to Santeri into the braking zone. Just can he get a good enough exit to somehow try and have a go into turn 1?
Yeah, I think this time might be the charm as now Perpetuum tries to close in on Santeri. Is the straight long enough for him to try and get the move done? I think the answer to that might be no. He goes down the inside still, though. Santeri makes a mistake, goes on the outside line. Perpetuum tries to force his way through, barge his way through out on track. Santeri has to let him go, and Perpetuum is through. Ruthless aggression from the current champion out on track, and he's through. And he's into 4th position. No moves happening further down the field. Scuba, though, trying to get onto the back of Carlsbury. Carlsbury really dropping down off the likes of Santeri and Perpetuum. But now it's let IMD get away. 7/10 of a second out on track. IMD 3.2 behind Lars. But Perpetuum in 4th, Santeri in 5th for now. Hyper, as you said, getting the good pace about, and I think it's because we saw it through Spoon last time around, where he actually nips out of the dirty air in front of the car ahead, with Scuba being ahead of him this time around. But Hyper just tends to go out of the dirty air, not into the hairpin here, but on the run through Spoon, on the run down in towards Spoon, it's this section out on track where he did it last time around. I'm running on board with him now, see if he does exactly the same thing. Typical when I ride on board with him. No, he doesn't, and Scuba pulls away.
Yeah, so I was going to say that could also be to cool the engine down as well. When you're stuck in these trains, there's no cooling fans on F1 engines. They rely completely on the flow of air going through, and it's going to be pretty warm air at this moment in time going through the airbox. Perpetuum gets a penalty. That's bad news for him, but I think he's going to sail straight past IMD. Sets the fastest lap of the race. Hyper and Joe Melmat are battling further back as well, but that's a straightforward move for Perpetuum, and I think Hyper just made a slight mistake there, and that's what allows Joe Melmat to get close, and that's sort of broken up this train as IMD nearly loses 2 places in 2 corners as Santeri tries to have a go. Throws Joe Melmat's going all the way around the outside into turn 1 and 2. We'll have the inside line for the next corner. Laser might be best just sitting back and watching this happen, and the Alfa Romeo is through up into 8th place.
Yeah, he tried to force his way through on the Casio triangle, and he was the one that actually made the mistake. Up into that section out on track, he re-lost the position to Hyper, but patience is a virtue out on track, and Yulmamat is through, and he's into 8th position out on track. Nathan has gone for the fastest lap attempt onto set us off of Commentators. He goes, I'm not surprised, he has came in to the pit lane now. He's back out the pit lane in about 4.5 seconds off the back of Nicholas. Santeri, though, going to try his luck once again on the back of Armour D. Maybe on the run up towards 130R is where I'm thinking Santeri might have a lunge, but 13% of ERS is now down to 7%. You can see on the steering wheel, without looking at the task system, you can see his ERS is now going down. He bottoms out essentially when it gets under 10%, and that's what's costing him out on track to try and get the move done on Armour D. Armour D has just got an element of control over this race. We are now 4 laps away from the end of the race. Jojo just bangs in the new fastest lap of the race, as you do when you're in front. But now Santeri trying to close up again onto the back of Armour D. But again, bottoming out down the street. He's got 1% of ERS left. If I was Santeri at this point in time, if I was Armour D as well, Armour D would try and pressurise Perpetuum. Santeri could drop back just within a second of Armour D, save up some ERS, because I don't think he's got a chance of actually getting this move done.
Yeah, I don't think he's too bothered about getting this move done unless Perpetuum gets a second away, and then he might think, I'll just do it, because he's got no penalties at this moment in time, so why not just stay behind Armour D, follow him round. Oh, you'll get the position later, but you might not get it if you end up losing your front wing on the back of the McLaren. That's a few times we've seen him go deep on the brakes now. We saw him do it into turn 1 earlier, and I think Perpetuum, I think almost spooked him. And Santeri just went a bit deeper to try and defend the position. That Perpetuum thought, well, there's a gap open now, I might as well go for it. This time around, though, I don't think Armour D is going to have the DRS, and it's not like he's got any ERS to fight with. I think this is when a lot of the people, the drivers, a lot of F1 drivers said this ERS system is more realistic than the one on 2019. I don't think anyone would complain too much if next year there was an option in the race to just completely not use any ERS, so at least you could build it back up again, because once you've started using a lot and getting down to these low levels, it's incredibly hard to get it back up in the current system.
Yeah, Santeri's got about 2% more ERS compared to Armour D at this stage, but is it going to be enough running down the straight in towards turn 1? Again, he bottoms out, 0% this time. Armour D's bottom out, though. He tries to go all the way around the outside, and there's contact. Santeri, somehow, why on earth did that happen? Santeri through, and he's into 4th position. Armour D, really unsure what happened there. It just looked like a bit of a failure with a contact model, if I've got to be honest. Santeri right on the back of Armour D, basically hitboxing his way through. That obviously is not allowed within racing. He didn't mean it. I can say that now. He did not mean it. But he switches to the inside line. He manages to get the move done. And Armour D all of a sudden has dropped 1.3 seconds back. That was a weird overtake.
Yeah, it was indeed. Nathan's gone for the fastest lap point. I can't really blame him at this moment in time, because he's got straight past Nicholas as well. So that's an extra bonus point. That could be all important. My view on that, I think Armour D sort of went across on Santeri on the way round the outside into turn 1, where Santeri was trying to go round the outside. He sort of made contact. Santeri almost drifted across the track, was trying to stop them making contact. They ended up making more contact. So yeah, very weird. Will be interesting to see whether that one does end up going to the stewards. That has completely split up this train now, and Perpetuum, he's now thinking, I only have to find 0.8 of a second, and I might be able to get myself on the podium.
Yeah, and Perpetuum will certainly be hoping to do that. 1.7 seconds off the back of Lars at this stage. Santeri 2.2 behind on Perpetuum, and less than 2 seconds, in fact. One ball with Combi, though, on the back of Laser, and Laser's now under pressure once again. The medium's really not working. He could be in towards puncture territory coming towards the end of this race. Combi now decides to try and use up a little bit of overtake mode to try and get the move done, but I think he's going to wait to the final lap of the race to try and get this move done down and towards turn 1, and we remain as we are. Hyper still in 9th, Laser in 10th, Combi in 11th, stuck in an Alpha Tauri train out on track. Miklas a little bit under pressure in terms of the racing out on track tonight. He's been a little bit off the pace, but he's still in 12th position, and he's only 2 seconds off, so you never know if this gets going ahead of him out on track. It could be some violent action to come, as Miklas will be hoping to try and close on to the back of Combi. I think violent was the wrong word. Hopefully, clean action out on track, competitive action out on track, but hopefully it allows him to catch back up.
Yeah, hopefully as well. He will obviously beat Laser as things stand on penalties, and might even have half a chance of beating Hyper as well, depending on how much battling there is. So maybe another top 10 finish or maybe, sorry, a first top 10 finish for Mikras. He did finish 11th last time around, so consistently picking up points. I think he'd have been hoping a bit more. It's been a fairly anonymous performance after what was a great race for him. Well, at least great first half of the race in Silverstone. Still, you've got all those drivers battling ahead. I'd still think, maybe if I'm Combi, I've got a bit more VRS than Laser. Do I get tempted to go for the move into the Casio triangle? Because down into turn 1, there's the DRS, obviously. We might get the answer here, because Laser goes half defensive into Casio triangle. Combi goes for the move. There's nothing wrong with going for the overtake, but you're getting the position on penalties at this moment in time, so you don't want to lose your front wing. Instead, you're spinning further down the field and maybe even getting a penalty. We are, though, all of a sudden, onto the final lap of the race, and it looks like it is going to be another victory, another fairly straightforward victory for Zhao Zhao.
Looking at the tyres, by the way, out on track, Laser and Armored D look like they might be in trouble. They've just reached over the 70% range out on track, so they are in puncture territory. They've got one more lap to try and complete, to try and get around in clean sailing. Cosby closing up to the back of Scuba. Scuba, though, is still in 7th position. I was going to say Cosby closing up to the back of Armored D. Scuba is closing up onto the back, but look at Yul Melmat in behind as well. Yul Melmat came from absolutely nowhere. It was just second and a half down this time last lap around, and now the Alfa Romeo right on the back of the Ferrari and the Finn as well on the McLaren out on track. But there's only been one man they can really take away from this race. Perpetuum, by the way, is gaining on Lars, so it's going to be quite interesting to see that battle. There is the man there who was on for his second race win in a row, 2 out of 2. Zhao Zhao coming around the final couple of corners out on track. Perpetuum tries to lunge at Lars down into the Casio triangle. Zhao Zhao across the line to win in Japan. A great win from out on track, but Perpetuum right on the back of Lars. Is he going to get him? Lars stays ahead by a tenth and a half. Santeri, though, will get both, and he's onto the podium. Lars finishes in third, Perpetuum in fourth in the end. I'm a D in fifth. There's a whole host of train going down the straight. Carlsbury, Scuba, and Yul Melmat. Scuba jumps up to sixth. Cosby 7th, Yul Melmat in 8th, Hyper across the line, Laser. Mikras has got a game big time, he's up into the top 10, Laser down in 11th, Hyper in 12th. Nathan and Nicholas, the only two left to complete. Nathan on a set of softs, of course, he's got the fastest lap in amongst them, and Nicholas going to be coming across the line. A disappointing performance from Nicholas, but Zhao Zhao out on top, 2 out of 2. What better start of the season could you have?
Well, slight marks down. He didn't get the fastest lap, but he only qualified second this week, so maybe I was just being a bit too harsh, but no, absolutely fantastic performance. Once again, did what he had to. Pitted maybe one lap too early. He knew, though, that he had the gap to maybe get away with that. Didn't affect him too much, and completely different people on the podium last week to what they had, to what they have got this week, so that's even better now for Zhao Zhao, and obviously being such a short season, it's pretty scary. He's probably going to have nearly a race wins lead already.
Which is absolutely insane. Is he going to be the Sebastian Vettel in the 2010s to 2014? Who knows? Zhao Zhao, though, out on top, and my early prediction of the championship leader definitely coming off, I think. I should predict this before we go live, first round of the season once again, but Zhao Zhao winning out on track, a fantastic result from him. Of course, we'll get the top 3 in just a second, but Zhao Zhao out on top in a very changeable race here in Japan. It's Zhao Zhao who wins from Santeri in second, IFR 1-2. Like that as well. Lars in third with Perpetuum in fourth, Armadine in fifth, Scuba in sixth, Carlsby 7th, Yul Melmat in 8th, Combi 9th, Mikras from 18th on the grid up to 10th, and Laser 19th on the grid up into 11th. Hyper in 12th, Nicholas 13th, Nathan in 14th, Lemon in 15th. His AI does not count towards the points, however. Volbeek, Dobby, Noon and Kuhnblai all caught out as a result of the changeable conditions. They all retired either in the pit lane or crashed out. Volbeek, Dobby, Noon and Kuhnblai. The 4 DNFs out on track along with Lemon, who didn't finish in human form. Zhao Zhao, though, out on top, Santeri second, Lars in third. Shall we try and get the top 3 in?
Let's give it a go. I think they all had pretty interesting races in different ways. For a second, we thought it was going to be a bit of a time trial between Lars and Zhao Zhao. That gap was down to a net, couple of tenths of a second before Lars ended up getting his penalty. Did a good job on those medium tyres. It's just towards the end they were starting to lose their pace, and another lap would have been very interesting indeed to see what would have happened between Lars and I think it would have been interesting to see what happened between Lars and Perpetuum in the final few laps of this race, but he ended up getting a podium on his debut. 2 reserves, though, on the podium. Definitely not bad news for Zhao Zhao's championship hopes at the moment. 2 out of 2. And I don't think anyone will be too surprised. I think even us might struggle to commentators curse him with the pace he's got so far this season.
Yeah, Lars actually not really meaning to be here, to be honest. Obviously filling in for Mashiro within that car. Podium on his debut with a last-minute replacement. He'll take it. GG Santeri and Jojo on the win as well. Very good to see. And the man himself has literally just came into our commentary box. Lars Kramer, who finishes in third position here tonight. And Lars, you were last-minute replacement. I was just literally saying you came in last minute, 5 minutes before the race. Didn't really have time for practice. And you came up finishing third.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. It was a last minute replace, yeah, so I'm really happy with P3. Unfortunately, I took a penalty, but yeah, anyway, P3, I'm happy with it.
Yeah, because it was getting quite close towards the end of the race between you and Jajo. It was swinging one way. You were needed within that 3-second range to try and get him. Jajo always held something back, though, in reserve. Did you ever feel at any point within that race that you could have got him?
At the beginning, when I was closing 1 second a lap, but afterwards, it was really difficult to keep up.
Very difficult to pick up, and of course, Jajo, master of the wet conditions out on track, which really led him to the race win out on track. But Lars, you filled in, I believe, for Mashiro, if I'm not mistaken, in the Ferrari, and just talk about that last-minute replacement. You coming in literally 5 minutes before the race beginning, Mashiro having internet problems. You come in, you grab yourself a podium. It must feel very, very nice.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else to say? No, I don't think he has anything else to say. Luke, I'll throw it over to you to ask questions.
Yeah, congratulations, Lars, on the podium. You went for the medium tyres. The other two drivers on the podium went for the hards. Were you ever tempted to do that at any stage, or were you always confident that the mediums would be quicker at the start and would comfortably get you to the end of the race?
Yeah, I knew the mediums could make it to the end, so yeah, I was going to the mediums, and of course it's faster at tricky conditions.
And will you be putting in a bit more practice for China just in case you get called up? Because on that basis, if you do, who knows, we might even see you take a victory next week.
Yeah, I'm going practice next week, of course.
Well, I'll pass you over to James, see if he has any more questions, but congratulations on your podium.
No, I have absolutely no more questions. Go and enjoy your evening, Lars.
Yeah, thanks for commentary.
You're very welcome. And I believe, do we have Santeri in the commentary box? Has he joined? I don't think I saw his name.
No.
Santeri is not here. Hopefully he might be available for interview. If not, we'll give him a minute or so to join. Obviously, Jaja is here within the commentary box. I'm very well aware of that. But hopefully, we're going to get Santeri in for an interview. If he is called, he might not have a mic. He might not speak good English. Who knows? But hopefully, Santeri will be able to join in. I know he's been sharing some of his thoughts in the Discord as well. Nathan Samuel Kunton, he spun out on track. He did a very good result. Mikra saying P10 as well. He would have been faster than Jajo and Santeri if he practiced. Let's ask, though, the man who's ended up in P1 out on track. Jajo, of course, winning out on track. Your second win of the season. And again, total domination.
Yeah.
Talk us through the race, because obviously it was great to see you. I think you were about 5 seconds ahead at one point before the changeable conditions came. Just talk us through that first half of the race.
Yeah, we saw in quali that it was gonna be wet in the first part of the race, and I actually thought that we were gonna start on the dry tires because it was only one patch of light rain. But then, it said that it's gonna be light rain for a long time, and then we started on inter. So it was just about thinking about managing the tires and switching at the right time to slick tires.
Yeah, and obviously the switchover period came halfway through, I think it was lap 7 or lap 8, if I'm not mistaken. The switchover came then, but you put it in slightly earlier than expected on Tresetta hard compounded tyres. Obviously, in terms of the loss that you had, in terms of obviously Santeri pitting in at the same time, but in terms of Lars out on track, you lost 2.5 seconds, I think it was, to Lars. At any point did you feel very, very much under pressure from him?
No, I didn't. There was no point where I felt under pressure because Jeff called me in for the pit stop, and I didn't think about pitting to soft. But of course, the soft is much faster when it's changeable conditions, because the hard tires need to warm up before they are any good. So I was just when I saw he was gaining like 2 seconds on me, I just knew that the hard tires just needed to warm up a bit, and then it would be near the same. So a little mistake on that point, in that way, but not really nervous at any point.
Yeah, I think in the whole grand scheme of things, you put it in pretty much at the right time, the right call from you out on track, and obviously ending up with the race win. Your second in a row, must feel very happy with that.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. A man of very few words, if I've got to be honest, from Jiao Jiao. But we'll come across to Luke. Any questions?
Just one from me. Congratulations on the victory, Jiao Jiao. You've put in 2 fantastic performances in races that have had wet parts, dry parts. You've had a pole position in the dry at Silverstone. Is there any tracks coming up this season that worry you more than others? Because at the moment, it looks like you've mastered everything.
I hate Canada. I hate it. It's the worst track. I don't know why they put it on the calendar.
They have, unfortunately, and it's in 2 rounds' time. I was going to literally say, do not say China or Canada, because I know that you're quite good around there. But Canada, I've been proven wrong, it seems. And
Yeah, that's the worst track.
It does sound like the worst track, but honestly, you and the wet conditions around there, I'd like to see that. Definitely in Canada, might just be the case for you to try and come out. Round 3 and round 4, of course, China and Canada. My final question to you, though, obviously taking a near race lead going into the third round of the championship next time out in China. What's your aspirations for the rest of the season? Is it to try and win the championship?
Yeah, of course. Only championship, it's only the championship that counts. So yeah, nothing else.
Yeah, very good words there from Judge. I'll go and let you enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Very welcome indeed, and that is the end. We've had contact with Santeri, by the way. He's in bed, so he doesn't want an interview. He's in bed. Typical. Very nice for some, isn't it? The Finn, of course. I think it's like 2 hours. But 2 hours ahead of time, essentially, so they're like 11 o'clock over there, which is totally fine by us. But that is the end for tonight's stream here. TTML Division 1 ending off in style. I did say before to Luke that it could be a drive of the day, a race of the season candidate. Was it?
I mean, it was definitely up there. We have the changeable conditions, drivers making a lot of mistakes as we were coming towards the end of the intermediates. I think it was Volby came very close to retiring. Kumblay's going one better through 130R, ending up retiring from the race. It was definitely better than Silverstone, but I don't think that's really saying much, to be honest. We'll see how things go in China and maybe in Canada, where we know Jiao Jiao's not feeling so confident.
Yeah, Canada, of course, round 4, China round 3, and that's where you're going to be joining us next here in TTML Division 1. And it should be fascinating to see, of course, out on track how this is all going to unfold. I'll come across to your final thoughts, and who was your driver of the day?
Driver of the day, I think, again, there's only one man I can go for that start of the race and that first stint. Jiao Jiao was absolutely fantastic, but we've seen drivers can challenge him. Santeri beat him in qualifying. Lars stayed in touch with him, you've got to say, in the dry period. The gap was still only about 3 or 4 seconds at the end, despite the mediums wearing. So you never know. Maybe, just maybe, he's not going to be as invincible as we think he is.
Well, he might be like the 2003 Invincibles of Arsenal. You never know. You never know about these things in Formula 1. And hopefully we're going to be tuning in to you next week from China at the Shanghai International Circuit. But that is it for tonight here in TTML Division 1, and that only means one thing to be said. I've been James Head.
I've been Luke Etheridge.
That rhymed. I liked it. We will, of course, see you next week for TTML Division 1. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.
Yeah, I'm on my way home. I'm no good for you, so I drive around Manhattan. They're all laughing, oh, I'm tragic. Yeah, I'm driving in my car and seeing open, but I can't go down that road again. I'll smoke a cigarette, but will that help me forget you? Will that help me forget you? I just need to forget you. Oh, you. I need a tree